Happening today, Governor Roy Cooper made a stop through the triad to encourage lawmakers to uphold his veto on the new abortion access bill.
Yeah, he told the crowd that there's a lot more to the bill than just a 12-week ban. It also creates new regulations on how and where abortions can be performed.
It's going to create significant obstacles for women. It's going to create obstacles for doctors and clinics. It's going to put all of them at risk. This is dangerous legislation.
But anti-abortion advocates in North Carolina hope Republicans will uphold their original votes and override Cooper's veto.
We believe that unborn children are humans, and there's no other place in our law that allows for a human to be killed without some sort of repercussions. And so we believe that abortion kills an unborn human every time it happens.
So to understand the veto process, let's walk through how a bill becomes a law in our state. It starts in one of two chambers of the General Assembly, either the Senate or the House, like right here. So say the House passes a bill, well, it then moves to the next chamber, the Senate, where they can pass their own version of it. The two bills together move to what's called a conference committee. That's where they both compromise on a final bill. And then that will go to Governor Cooper. He can either sign it into law, let it become a law without a signature, or he can veto the bill. If he vetoes it, then it goes back here to the General Assembly.
All right, well, here's where things get really interesting with all that. To override the governor's veto, 3/5 of lawmakers have to approve it. That is 72 lawmakers in the House, 30 in the Senate. That is the exact same number of Republicans in each one of those chambers right now, meaning that every single Republican would have to vote for that veto override for the bill to become law. Now, that's why the governor is making an effort to try and flip at least one Republican in the hopes of maintaining his veto. However, you do need to know this next detail. In North Carolina, a veto override vote can be taken when not all lawmakers are there, which means you just need 60% of lawmakers in the room to vote for the override. So Republicans could wait for a day when some Democrats are not there and then take that veto override vote. Now, this has happened recently, just the pistol permit bill, you might remember, that revoked the need to get a permit from the sheriff before you buy a pistol.
Lawmakers are hoping to use the new abortion bill to close the loophole created by that gun permit bill. The goal is to stop domestic violence abusers from getting a gun. In the 42-page abortion bill is this clause, creating a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. See, what happened is that when the sheriff no longer did a background check, gun retailers had to depend solely on the federal background check system, which doesn't always pick up domestic violence crimes from North Carolina. That's because North Carolina does not actually have a crime of domestic violence. Instead, it's often labeled by the courts as assault. The change in the abortion bill would create a new crime that would be flagged by the national background check system.
Well, as North Carolina is debating the future of abortion access, the federal courts are still considering if women should be able to get the abortion pill. The Supreme Court says women can have access while the appeal plays out. A lawyer that pushed for the ban in Texas believes the courts will eventually agree that the FDA should never have approved the prescription.
Courts have found our case compelling because the FDA fails to actually look at the data that they had before it and what our doctors have presented to them, clearly showing that these drugs present dangerous situations to women and girls.
The Justice Department and the FDA dispute the claims in the Texas lawsuit and say the FDA has rigorously reviewed the pill's safety and effectiveness repeatedly since it was first approved 23 years ago. More than 5 million women in the U.S. have used the medication. Vice President Kamala Harris says a ruling that weakens FDA authority would then create chaos in the prescription drug market.
Arguably, what they're doing with mifepristone could happen to any one of those drugs in your medicine cabinet.
Well, there's no timeline for when the appeals process will be over.
While we wait for the courts to rule if women can keep getting the abortion pill, the FDA is debating if the birth control pill should be sold over the counter. CBS News says a panel of FDA health experts just signed off on the idea.
The recommendation came after a 2-day meeting
The evidence demonstrates that the benefits clearly exceed the risks.
where health experts discussed whether the oral contraceptive called O-pill should be made available without a prescription.
I urge you to make this pill available with no age restriction.
Advocates for adolescent health strongly recommend the Food and Drug Administration make the hormone-based birth control pill available over the counter.
An over-the-counter contraceptive would reduce inequities for these young people.
The FDA's decision will only apply to drug maker Perrigo's O-pill, a brand first approved 50 years ago. Over-the-counter birth control pills are already available in more than 100 countries, but here in the U.S., it would be the first time. With new abortion restrictions taking effect around the country, demand has increased for over-the-counter options, including the morning-after emergency contraception. A lingering concern at this week's meeting is whether consumers will have trouble following the labeling directions.
May I ask, did you consider the terminology, take one tablet by mouth at the same time every day?
The panel's vote is just a recommendation and not binding. The FDA is expected to make its final decision this summer.
It's not clear how or even if insurance would cover the over-the-counter pill if it becomes over-the-counter. But without insurance, it is expected to cost somewhere between $20 and $50 per month.